Hello, hello, and happy Sunday. I want to get on here and talk about having grace for ourselves throughout our journey, throughout our spiritual healing process. Because, I sit there and if you notice, try to read all those comments, like every single thing, because I just enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot, connecting with other people. And so sometimes when I'm reading, I always feel like there's this overwhelming feeling of, like an undercurrent of regret happening. And like, I wish I would have known this. I didn't know this, and I wish I would have. And I want to say I'm guilty of it too. I just finished making a video a few weeks back, or maybe it was last week. I'm not sure at this point, about having these feelings of regret about how I walked into marriage and how I started my adult life, and not realizing that the decisions that you make, you carry with you all of your entire adult life. And I was like, you know what? But I'm not interested in going back. I'm not interested in changing anything. But we have this idea. It's like this fictional idea that if we were to like fix one thing or change one thing in the past or go back and understand something that we didn't understand, that everything else in our lives will fall into place. And like, we know this is not true. I was listening to a podcast the other day. It was actually about astrophysicism, but he was talking about that we are prisoners of the now. And I thought about that, and I was telling that to my daughter. I was like, we can never go back to the solidified past, and we do not have access to the unattainable future. We are always in the present moment, even though we can think about what we think is the past, and we can ruminate on what we think is the future. And all we have in any given time is the present moment. So whenever we get this information, whenever we become educated or informed or enlightened, that is the time. That is the time for us to have it. Maybe it's not something that'll work in our lives for this moment, because like, yeah, I know a great deal about how you should walk into a marriage now, how you should, start a family with children, and what are the important things. But like at 26, 27 years old, no, of course I didn't know that. And if you do not come from environments where you are being educated on these things, then you will not know that you don't know, right? And I got rid of a couple of comments on the page that were really negative towards other women, is about what they didn't know, and it's like, it's so stupid that women don't know. And I'm like, it's not stupid. It just means that you've never been introduced to the information. Once introduced to new information, then you can take on that and make your decisions from that point on, right? Because sometimes we hear things, but when we hear it in a certain venue, we hear it from a certain person, or we hear it in a certain environment, or at a certain time in our lives, it sounds very, very different. I was thinking back to some of the stuff that I see my daughters not struggle with that I did so heavily, right? I didn't understand the importance of education. I didn't understand that I should have did well in high school, that it would have behooved me to do that. But in my own learning process, once I learned how important that was when I was in college, stuck with remedios and wasting money semester after semester on maths and English courses that I should have mastered in high school, but there wasn't any real support for it. And this is not a dig into my family of origin. They just had different priorities. And so I was like an educated, oriented, priority person, but I was, first gen with my desires. So I had to accumulate a lot of information about higher ed all on my own, if that's the road I wanted to take. And it was, right? So when my daughters came along, it's like they walked out of high school with these nearly 4.0 averages, getting accepted into schools that I couldn't even look at. And I was like, I would be crazy to sit there and whine and be upset or bothered that my own children are getting something or having information and using that information properly that I didn't have and didn't have access to it. I would also be foolish to sit there and try to blame or accuse or be negative towards my parents when that deal is done, right? We can make observations. If you ever notice, I always talk about things. I'm like, this is what happened, but I'm not mad about anybody. I'm not angry about anybody. I'm not upset about what somebody didn't give me or didn't give me. I am 45 years old. I cannot sit around for any moment of my life at this point and talk about what somebody didn't give me or didn't do. And 9 times out of 10, the reason why that does happen is because they didn't have access to it either. And if you want to keep on going back, you can go generation to generation to generation to generation. And you're going to keep on going back and finding somebody else to blame for what you did not know in your family line, for what you did not have access to, for the information that you couldn't use to accomplish things. And the same thing goes with even dating and relationships. My oldest daughter's first boyfriend, they were a really cute couple for a while, right? And I didn't have any judgments or any feelings about it because I was like, they're in, 11th grade to 12th grade or something like that. But there came a moment where she came and knocked on my bedroom door one night. And she was just like, Mommy, I want to break up with him. And I was like, why? And she was like, he doesn't have any desires to do anything with his life. Like, he doesn't want to go to college. He doesn't have any ideas for like starting a business or growing himself. He doesn't even read books. And I was like, well, I didn't know any of this. And I probably still wouldn't judge because I think process is important. And she was like, and he's very negative and he's always in victim mode. Like everything is somebody's fault. And he's always whining about what's not going right for him in his life. And she was like, I just can't do that. And I was so incredibly proud, although I didn't say it in a moment. I was like, well, you're going to have to do what's best for you in that. And so if I was like, give it a little time. And she was like, I can't wait any longer. She's kind of silly in that way. And then she eventually wound up doing it. But it was like, for me, it felt really good and like generational curses broken because I was brought up in an environment to where if he was a nice little cute guy, is just like, I actually dated, that my first boyfriend was for 3 years and he had a similar mindset. He was very nice and he just didn't have any ambition. He had no desires to improve or grow himself. And I knew who I was in that sense and what I required even, from connections. And I stayed with him for 3 years because that's just what you did. You didn't, if they weren't doing anything negative towards you per se, that is what you did. But she's really clear on this is not somebody I see that can do and bring what I want to experience in my life. And so it was so nice because she actually did this right before prom. And a couple of her friends were like, you're not going to have pictures for prom. You're not going to be able. She was like, I don't care about that. And I was like, wow, because you know what? So much stronger than me. At that age, I was foolish enough to think that hanging on to someone that I didn't really like or didn't want to be in a relationship or connection with anymore. This is the information I had now was, it was more important to take pretty prom pictures and all that kind of stuff. She was like, no, I'm just going to go with my friends. They have these beautiful group pictures. All of them were singles at the dance and they went out to eat. They had a really good time. She said, because I want to have fun and I don't think I'm going to have fun with him because I don't have fun with him anymore. And I was like, look, this. And I was so proud and impressed. And the thing about it is, I've seen so many times where daughters will do that with their mothers. They'll come and say this and the mothers will be upset because the daughter is showing autonomy. She's showing agency. She's showing that she has a mind of her own and that she's not going to be categorized or put in a box related to her relationship status or whether or not she brings a person to prom and all this. She's like, I can stand on my own and be my great self and I'll be perfectly fine. Let me tell you, she was beautiful. She was a showstopper and she had a wonderful time. And so when we look back at things like that, we have to remember that there's no way to know the things that you just didn't know. There's no way to go back and get information and redo parts of your life that you've already done, right? All we can do is take it from now on and move forward. And it just makes me think I was kind of like going down this rabbit hole of how we ruminate and experience life in a negative way when those things aren't happening in that moment, right? Like, have you ever talked to someone and they were talking about an experience they had in an old relationship, or either like how tough it was to raise their kids or how terrible a workspace was or something like that. And when they're telling a story, it feels like it's happening right then and there. And I'm a firm believer that when you hold on to things that tightly, when you keep things that tightly to your chest, and when you don't release them and give yourself the forgiveness that you need and give yourself the grace that you need in order to move forward, instead of always thinking, I wish I could have done this different, it eats away at you. It eats away at everything about you. It definitely wrecks your nervous system. And what I know about a wrecked nervous system, and I plan on doing a video about that, is that it makes everything stressful. And people don't realize, if you have like weight loss goals or fitness goals, or you have like different type of small ailments that you go to the doctor for and they can't figure out why you have this particular ailment, or like things like retaining water or having high blood pressure and stuff like that. I'm a firm believer that it comes from the level of cortisol that's being raised in your body from constantly going back to this environment or back to this event or back to this place and experiencing it like it just happened that day in that moment. And I have a lot of experience with this. I know, because I did that for a minute when it came to things in my life, because I was always so frustrated. I was like, in my mind thinking, you should have been smarter than that. You're so smart. Why didn't you know better than that? But you can't have everything. You can't know everything. You can't be in front of everything. And also, we can't even expect that of other people. We can't expect that other people will always make decisions based on information that we have, because a lot of times we think that if we share specific information with other people, that their background, their upbringing, their nature, their nurturing doesn't make a difference. This is the best decision, and I told them what to do and they still went and did something else. But this is the thing. What I ultimately believe is that we do not even know what's best for us at any given time. Because think about me standing here, had everything going pristine and perfect in my life. Yeah, I could share a few things, but most of the story, most of the information, and most of the wisdom, and most of the glow up or the expansion that I share comes from the darkest moments in my life. It comes from going to court and fighting for custody for my children. It comes from living pillar to post and not having a home, couch surfing with my two small daughters for a year and a half while going through divorce. It comes from those moments. It comes from being broke, rock bottom, and thinking like, how do you live in a car? Let me Google some videos on that, right? It comes from those moments. And a lot of times we want to label things as good and this is bad. This is good that I went through this. I'm a single mom, so that's bad. This is good that, I found a mate and, my daughter decided not to go to college. That's bad. And we have all these things that we say, but at the end of the day, we don't have a clue. We do not have insight into all the aspects of life that's going to play out and give us the ultimate outcomes that we are looking for. And I can even say that with just about every single thing I've done in my life. It always came from some information that I didn't have, and then it created some rocky circumstance because of the information I didn't have or what I didn't believe. And then from there, I resurrected and I created something, co-created something great. And then from there, I was successful, right? And I can even talk about that from even a previous relationship I was in. I look back because it's very recent, very, very recent. And when I think like, you should have been more evolved than that. But no, I shouldn't have been, because I had not been tested in those ways. And so when I look at some of the earlier little red flags and I'm like, why didn't you stop there? 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 And the reason why is because I didn't fully, even in those, like in the last 5 years of recent times, understand the full value of who I was in a romantic relationship and a connection. And so through not understanding that, you experience these negative outcomes when you're interacting with other people. And through those negative outcomes, you decide, okay, this is not for me. I have to do something else. I have to figure something else out. I have to move out of this situation. I have to create something new. And from there, who you're learning to be, that is the ultimate goal. That is the luxury. That is the journey. That is the sweet spot. Because like we get the stuff, but who we become in the process of it is so much more important, right? Even if you look at this YouTube channel, I've been running it for a long time, right? But I was always inconsistent with it. And if I can honestly say consistency, maybe in the last 3 to 4 years, very, very, very consistent with posting, right? And I found myself falling off in the summer, and then YouTube spanked me and I was like, oh my God, no views. And then I came back and I was like, okay, if you really want to share, if you really want to empower others, you want to inspire, you want to educate, you want to share your wisdom, this is a perfect platform for it. So you need to be more consistent and take it more seriously. And even in that process of doing that, who I became in the past 4 years of taking this seriously and having stories to share and developing myself in areas of my life and sharing those candid moments many times, that is more important to me. And so like the outcome of it, with the recent uptick in subscribership and comments and people showing up, the air conditioning came on. It's just me standing in my pantry again. It has good acoustics. But the outcome of it, that was inevitable once you keep on doing the work. So don't spend so much time thinking about what you should have known, what you didn't know, and how it was supposed to be, because what you are gathering is going to be valuable and worthwhile information for somebody else, either your own children or either somebody else's children, either in a small conversation in a cafe or a workshop. Because you best believe, being a first generation college student and having to sit in all those remedial courses, my girls are not going to even touch, they don't even touch that area. Like they don't even, it's like student loan, huh? Like they're not even in that space. And the younger one is just like, you know what, I'm getting them scholarships, And they understand because I understand more. And so now we can work from there. I'm not sitting around with regret thinking like, oh, I should have done better. I should have known better. It could have been better. You know what? People have what they have. They give you what they give you. We grow up in these environments and we're not programmed to see things a certain way. So when we get older and we get introduced to new information, just like a computer, new applications, it can't run an application that it doesn't have. And you're the same way. New information is a new application. When that information is downloaded into your system, then you can start operating into that system. Then you can open that program up and say, I'd like to do this I'd like to run this program instead of that program. And matter of fact, this program is so good, I don't think I need that old program anymore. Just like on a computer, just like an app, you can delete it. Or either the programming is okay, but you know what? It needs some updates. Same thing, just like a computer. I'm going to take this app and I'm going to update it. And that's what we do in life. There's never any particular space to get to, any direct, this is the goal, this is the outcome, this is the only thing that's important. It's always about the journey. It's always about the learning process. And it's always about how what we learn and what we gather can help others and can empower and inspire others. And sometimes moments, because we're just like an ocean, we ebb and we flow, it doesn't always look pretty. Sometimes in the valleys, we're just like, I made all the mistakes in the world. And then when the peaks come, you're just like, oh, I guess I was doing something right. But in those moments, we can't forget. It comes from that information that we didn't have. It comes from those moments when we didn't know, right? So that allows me to give other people a lot of grace. I don't walk around like some of the comments that I deleted, calling other people dumb or stupid just because they didn't know something that they didn't know. Or either the program that they're running is continuously repeating itself. No, I give grace, right? You give grace. And it doesn't mean you have to be around people or hang with them or have them in your space, but giving them grace, and then give yourself grace, because when you're supposed to know something, when it's supposed to happen, you're supposed to figure it out, that's when you do. And as the human condition goes, there's no way for us to figure out everything related to everything that we're going to experience. Because we have that thing, what do they call it, the reticular activating system, and it filters out all of the information that we walk around amongst every single day. Because if we actually took in all of the information, like sights, sounds, colors, feelings, like all of it, we would go in complete overload and we would overheat. Kind of like a computer system. You gotta excuse me with all the computer references, because it's just my world. And one reason why I was really good at teaching computer science is because I understood how it made sense in the world. I wasn't just, this is ones, this is zeros, this is a hard drive, this is a software. I was always just like, a networking system works just like the organs in your body. You have these areas where you pick up information, and then the blood, like the way the blood is carried through in your veins, that's the same way these internet cables are running through, putting information from one place to the next. And they will go, oh, so it's like my references are very technical sometimes, but it's okay, because I think that because so many people use technology and computers these days, it's not so far-fetched to understand things through that lens. Anyway, I hope you all having an amazing Sunday, and I know I am, per usual. Enjoyed the park per usual, out in nature. Always love that. And I actually cooked for the day on Saturday this week, so we're all good. And thank you for being here, and have a wonderful day.